Hello and welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have Lorian Fenton, who is a UFO researcher, contactee. She has her own radio show. She has many books as well. She's an author, and she's here to discuss some of the amazing research that she's done into UFOs over the years, and to tell us some of her amazing stories of mind control, of time travel, and of all sorts of magical, amazing extraterrestrial things. So welcome, Lorian.
Thank you for having me, Antonia. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you so much. Okay, let's jump right in. Tell me an amazing story.
Well, I think the first, we just talked about discussing the when I got pneumonia, but I think I want to go further back. I think I want to go back to when I'm 6 years old. And this is what I call the Black Rabbit story. And everybody kind of who knows me knows of this story, but this is a new audience for me. You're wonderful people that listen to your podcast. So I think I'll start with that. And how it began was I was born in 1957, and when 1963, when I'm about 6 years old, my grandparents and my parents lived next door to each other, and we had a small farm. We had about 8 acres, something like that. And the big thing of the year was to go to the county fair. Okay. And back in those days, all there was here in the United States was 4-H. I mean, that was huge. It was all about animals, and everybody would, raise their cows and pigs and chickens and goats and what have you, and take them to the fair and compete and then sell the stock to different farmers throughout the valley. Anyhow, long story short, we end up at the Multnomah County Fair, and my grandfather needed to go over where the sheep were for some reason. My grandmother wanted to take off and do something else, and it was just me and my little sister, who was about 3 years old. And they plopped me down in front of the rabbit section. So I'm sitting there, and right next to me, where they kind of said, hang out here with the rabbits, and we'll come find you in a few minutes. And right there were a sister and brother team who had just won first place in the rabbit competition for their buck that had been, I don't know what style he was, but he was huge. He was black. He had big floppy ears. He was gorgeous. And I sat there and I said, "Can I hold your rabbit?" And they said, "Sure." So I sat there for probably 20 minutes holding this rabbit, fell madly in love with it, and I really wanted to take it home. My grandfather comes back and goes, "Oh, I see you're holding a rabbit," which was, the first thought in his head was, "Oh my God, she's going to ask me to take it home." And of course I did. And he asked the little brother and sister team if he could buy it. And they said, "Nope, it's going to auction," and blah, blah. And he said, "Well, I don't want to build a hutch anyhow, so that's fine. Good." And we're starting to leave. So I'm very upset because I've got to turn this rabbit over to its owners and say goodbye. And it was not fun nor pretty. And as kids do, I cried a lot and stamped my feet, and I was, throwing a tantrum. And we get in the car. And back in those days, there were cars that were known that had they were known for bench seats. I don't know if you remember bench seats, but they aren't bucket seats, they're bench seats. And back then also, kids weren't strapped in like they're going to Mars in those chairs or anything. We get to, fly around in the back seat and, have fights and do all kinds of fun things back in the old days. Anyhow, I'm hanging over the bench seat, sliding back and forth between my grandfather and my grandmother, and I whisper in each ear saying, "Please, Grandma, tell Grandpa I want a rabbit. Please get me a rabbit." Then I'd scoot over to Grandpa, and then I'd say, "Hey, I really want that rabbit. Will you build me a hutch? I really want a rabbit." And this goes on and on all the way till we get about a half a mile from the house. At that point, they both tell me, and in no uncertain terms, am I ever going to get a rabbit? And I was very devastated. I sat between the two of them, hanging over the seat. I put my hands together because I'm now going to Catholic school. So I've learned how to say the Hail Mary and the Our Father. And I'm there, like, "Dear Father, I know this isn't right, but I want a rabbit and the Hail Mary." And I'm doing this whole thing, right? But now here's the interesting parts of this story. Everybody's going, "Oh, this is so dumb," right? But the reality is, in that moment, I really loved that rabbit with pure love. I mean, it wasn't like I wanted to have it because I wanted to have it. I wanted to have it because I loved it. And that's a very distinct difference between wanting to possess something because of just having it. So I explain that to people. And this is the key to manifestation, folks. I'm telling you right now, this is the key to manifestation. And I really just wanted to love a rabbit. Okay. And I felt this feeling go through my body, and I felt it many times since then. It's not often, but many times since then, where I felt this extreme peace and love and light and just this amazing feeling. And it wasn't a Kundalini experience, it was more of a just a profound, overwhelming sensation, is how I describe it to people now. And it was very peaceful, very calm. And at 6 years old, I thought everybody who prayed had that feeling. I was like, oh, that's cool, whatever. Anyhow, so I'm praying, and we pull into the driveway, and we had a gate going across the driveway to the farm, like most people do, because you fence it all in so the animals don't escape, right? So my grandfather's looking and my grandmother's looking, and there's a black blob in the driveway right beyond the gate. And they're looking at this, and they look at each other, and then they look at me, and then my grandfather gets out the car and he opens the gate, and they're sitting in the middle of the driveway is a rabbit, same color, same style of rabbit, same everything, a male, the whole bit, sitting right there in the driveway. And my grandparents are just floored, and my little sister's clapping and screaming, and she thinks it's so much fun, and I'm so happy, because I thought, God, listen to me, which she did, which is very interesting. And my grandfather said, oh my God, I got to build that hutch after all, because apparently the rabbit's going to go with us wherever we go. And so that was the day my grandmother knew, out of 21 grandchildren, that I was the one who got her gift,
Oh,
because she figured it out. She figured out that what I was doing was something a little extraordinary. So that was the beginning of my whole life. So, and what's interesting about that whole scene and scenario and case, or whatever you want to call it, I never thought about it again until I was almost 53 years old. I really didn't think about it. It was just one of those things that happened, because from that point on in my life, everything became extraordinary. I mean, I was seeing my dead boyfriends. I saw my grandmother the night she died. My grandmother saved my life when I was 18 months old. And so I just had a complete, just very extraordinary psychic life. And then when I was about 13 or 14, that's when the UFO stuff started for me. So it became a whole experience in another whole realm. And that's when I started studying JFK assassination, and that became another whole thing. Then by the time I was in my 20s, things really got roaring, because I started understanding that there's definitely a battle going on between good and evil on this planet. And kind of, I kind of leave it at that point for my 20s, because that's when I was really getting an education as far as, what makes this world tick, and, who really is telling you the truth. I think that's really what we're coming down to now in this whole world, the whole complex, the whole cabal that's running things. It's really coming down to who's, telling you the truth about what's really going on. So I think that's what we should be concerning ourselves with these days, is the truth.
yeah, not many people are telling us the truth, but I mean, maybe they think that do you think that they think that we can't handle the truth, or do you think that they're just trying to hold on to all the technology and things for themselves? What do you think it is?
I think what they have in mind for us for the future is so horrific for many of us that we couldn't even believe that they would want to go down that road. I'm of the ilk now at 66 years old that things are not as they seem, and they're probably more evil than we can even imagine. And that scares me that I even have to say this on a show. I mean, because if you talked to me about this 25 years ago, I would have said, "Oh yeah, everything's going to be great. We're gonna manage to solve all the problems with the world with computers, and the world's going to be wonderful, and we're going to get rid of pollution, and everything's going to be great." But now I don't know. After what's been going on the last 3 or 4 years, I'm really starting to wonder if there isn't some kind of uh, good versus evil problem going on here at such a deep level that I don't know if we're going to be able to fix it, honestly. But
Really?
the source provides, and the source will, take us all into that loving space. I would like to tell you the story about. Oh, I forgot about this one. I At one point, I how do I describe this? I was dealing with a lot of psychics. I was part of a psychic institute at the time. I was in my late 20s. I was almost 30. I think I was 29 when this happened. And I had been married for about a year at this time. And I was just starting to do a whole thing where I was calling in my ETs because I had no idea who they were, where they were from, what they looked like, whatever. And at one point, I said, hey, you guys got to come here and see me. And I waited a week, I waited more time, and I got really sick one afternoon. I wasn't feeling well. I went to bed, and all of a sudden, the room, well, okay, to start with, I was falling asleep, and just as my eyelids were closing, the room filled with a flash of brilliant light, and I saw a it looked like an outline of a person in white light standing next to me. And I tried to open my eyes, but I couldn't. It was like they were just, slowly going to shut no matter what I did. So they shut. And the next thing I know, I feel like a fingertip running from the tip of my forehead down to the bridge of my nose. And it felt like a feather running across it. And the next thing I know, I'm standing in front of God. And I swear to God, it was God. It was some kind of source, the energy, the entities, whatever you want to call it. And basically, it was bright, brilliant light. And the sense of peace and love that came over me was so profound that I can't even describe it to people. Now, if you've had that happen, you know what I'm talking about, but it's the best person who's ever described it, I think, was Betty Eady in the book Embraced by the Light, where she swore that it was Jesus that she was in front of. Well, for me, it wasn't Jesus because I'm not, not that I don't like Jesus, okay? Don't get me wrong, but I'm not a groupie for Jesus. I'm more of a groupie for God. So, um, whatever I saw was a God type figure, and I reached out my hands and tried to touch its face. So the chapter in my book is called Touching God's Face,
Ooh.
and that's what this is about. But anyhow, so long story short, he had me there for, it could have been forever, I don't know. But when I woke up, 2 hours had passed. And it felt like forever. And I said to him, I do not want to go back. Please let me stay with you. I really can't go back there. It's horrible. I just don't want to go back. And he said, you've got work to do. You've got to go back. That's the way it is. Sorry, going back. So I go back. And when I got in my body, I could have sworn to you that I weighed 3,000 pounds. I couldn't move. I couldn't move my body. It felt like it was on fire. I must have been dead for a couple of hours. That's what I'm thinking, because I've talked to other people who have had a similar experience, and they said, yeah, it felt like my body was coming back to life, like all the cells were turning on, like I was on fire from every cell reanimating. And I was like, yeah, that's what it really felt like. It was something extraordinary. And started crying. I couldn't stop crying. And about 20 minutes into the crying jag, because it was so bad being here, you guys, I can't explain it. It was like the heaviness of the world was in my brain, and I was like, I can't be here anymore. I got to go back. I got to go back. I got to go back and be with God. The love was so amazing. The peace was beyond recognition, and or description. And I was just like, I got to go back. So I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to kill myself. Then they can't send me back because I'll be dead. I'll be really dead. So I grabbed, my husband had just had surgery, and there were some painkillers in his bathroom, and I had sleeping pills in my bathroom, and there's a bottle of JD in the kitchen. So I grabbed the alcohol, the pills, and all that, and I'm just getting ready to start downing it, and the front door flies open, and my husband comes running in, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm killing myself. He goes, no, you're not. He goes, I just left work for you. You're not killing yourself at all. And I said, well, what happened? So now his story is even more interesting, I think, is because here's a guy that I never saw. I mean, our whole relationship, he was off on a helicopter, on a naval ship, on he worked for Ready Marine Electronics, which was a subsidiary of Raytheon, and he was the guy that went out to all the ships and fixed their radar systems. So every time a big, what they call ro-ros, the big container ships would come into a bay in a port, Long Beach, San Francisco, Seattle, wherever on the West Coast, they had a bad radar problem. If it was completely broken, even the military vessels would call him and say, come out and fix our ship, whatever. So long story short, he was never home. So he was sitting at his bench fixing some electronic equipment, and he heard a voice in his head say, you've got to go home. And he's like, what? He told me, he said, I never had a voice in my head telling me what to do. He goes, I was really freaked out. And he waited about 10 minutes, and he said that it came back and it was screaming at him and said, you've got to go home now. He's like, okay. So he got up, he walked into his boss's office, and he said to the boss, I got to go home now. And the boss looked at him and goes, why? He goes, well, I don't know. And the boss just looked at him and said, okay, go ahead. So he left. And he came home like, 2 or 3 hours early, whatever. Anyhow, point is, he knew by the time he got home, he knew it had to do with I was either very sick, dying, or dead. He figured that out. So, but he was mad. He was mad that that God told him he had to go home to save me. I was like, what are you mad about? He goes, well, I would rather get a paycheck, So obviously we got divorced, but
Sounds like it, yeah.
he did save me from killing myself, after that experience. So I got to thank him for that.
Wow, interesting. Goodness. So tell me about this mind control pneumonia situation.
Oh,
Teased
oh
me
my
with
God.
it started.
Okay, so how long is this show?
We have a minute.
Well, good, because this is, I am the woman, and everybody gets mad at me for this, but I was the lady who produced the mind control conferences in 2012, 13, and 14, which brought you a cast of characters that to this day are causing many problems in the conspiracy community and the secret space program community and all these different areas. And several of them are now dead. I don't know if you've ever heard of a gentleman by the name of Max Spears. Does that ring a bell at all? Probably not in your sphere, but in the conspiracy community, he was quite a figure, and he eventually died in Europe. I can't remember. I think in Poland where he
I
died.
think I might have
But
seen it. Yeah.
yeah, and long story short, I was
Yeah, I
I'll
did
tell
see
how
that. It was
that
quite a random death. There was suddenly, yeah, I did think I saw that.
yes, there was a lot of scandal around it, and it was quite controversial. So long story short, I am that woman. I'm the one who brought all those guys to attention to the world because I put on conferences around their predicament. Now, the reason I did that was because I had been attending a conference in Southern California, and I met all these guys there. And my thought was, well, why hasn't anybody ever put on a conference for them before? Or the targeted individuals, or any of these people who are under some kind of severe attack?
Voice of God sort of technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because I've had so many experiences where there were voices talking to me in my head that I used to think I was pretty crazy, but now I know that I was
You and me
having
too,
good
sister.
experiences. Yes, exactly. And I could read other people's thoughts at points. I mean, there were a lot of really strange things going on with me psychically as a teenager that were just, that's another whole part of my book. But long story short, I felt really bad for them. I felt like they needed a voice, and I thought having a conference for them would be the way to do it. Little did I know that the government did not want their mind control programs being a flashlight shown upon them, or a spotlight, or whatever you want to call it. They did not want this being talked about. So many of the people who were on my stage those years are now dead. They died shortly after the conferences. People say they died of natural causes. I don't believe it. And the reason I'm going to tell you I don't believe it is because of what happened to me after the second conference. There was a mass abduction. And when I say mass abduction, that's about 15 people at my conference that were all drugged, taken out of our room, and lined up in a military operation. And we were put on these rider trucks that looked like dental offices. They had these chairs in them that look like dentist chairs, and they're for medical purposes. And anyhow, long story short, a lot of people don't believe this, and they don't have to. I have had 3 people that were involved in the situation regress. They know that it did happen. We have 1 person that remembers it happening. I have never been regressed over it, but I do remember, I have flashbacks of memory of different pieces of that event. So I do know it happened. And the way it happened and what was said during it is very different than a normal, like people go, oh, can't you get that mixed up with a different event? I'm like, no, you don't get those things mixed up with a different event. And what you talk about during those events while they're happening is not stuff you just talk about. Okay. Like, I'll give you an example. One of the women that was abducted with us, she's my best friend. She's standing next to me in this line, getting ready to go into this truck, and she looks down at me and says, "Wow, can you believe this is happening?" I looked up at her and I think she's really tall. I looked up at her and I said, "No one will ever believe this is happening." And I remembered saying that, and she remembers me saying that. And we didn't tell each other what I'd said. We wrote it down on a piece of paper and handed it to each other. So that way we know it wasn't talked about beforehand or anything. And it was the exact word. So I know it really did happen. So I'm still confused about why they targeted all of us, but I kind of understand now it was more of a military operation to make sure that we were all still in compliance with our programming. And I'm saying that so people can understand that there are many people in different walks of life that have been part of these military mind control or my labs type of situations where you are maybe being used in different programs, some with ET, some with just the military, and some of them are programmed to do horrific things like shoot up a theater or shoot up a naval yard or whatever. So there's a lot of facets to this.
Mm.
And so I'm going to just tell you what happened to me after the 2013 conference in Henderson, Nevada, after this mass abduction. And I got stuck. By the way, I'm leaving the hotel as the conference producer, and I have a manager of the hotel asking me who's going to pay for all the damages. And I go, what are you talking about damages? And he goes, 3 of the rooms doors were broken in, and it broke away from the wood broke away. The little thing that slides across is all broken. Everything's broken. Because what the heck were they doing breaking into the rooms? And I said, oh, okay. Then I really knew it was real because by that time, people were telling me people broke into my room last night and took me away, and I was like, no way. They didn't do that. So then I get to pay for 3 rooms full of, broken doors. I'm like, okay, something really did happen here. Anyhow, so I'm leaving that conference and I'm going up to Rachel, Nevada, to the Little Alien Inn, which I'm sure many of your viewers have heard about at Area 51. And we're spending the night there. And then I'm going on to my hometown of San Francisco. And I'm going through Reno. So I'm going north up through Reno and into San Francisco. And we get to the Little Alien, and it's about 10 o'clock at night. So we decide to take a nap and wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go out and look for UFOs. So that's wonderful. So we go out, we look for UFOs. We get back about 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I go to my room, which is in the back of these trailers they have there that they use for like hotel rooms. and I'm in the back of the trailer, and the two guys are in the front room in the front of the trailer, and the restroom is in the middle. Okay. So I'm in this room and I turn on the air conditioning and it doesn't work. And I'm really upset because it's really hot. And I thought, well, that's fine. I'll just open the door to my room and the hallway, and I'll open the door to the outside, and I'll get some air in here. And it'll be fine till it gets really hot, or, when we leave about 9. So I set the alarm for 8:30 and I go to sleep, and I wake up and I know something's very wrong, and I know I've been drugged. I
Oh,
can tell I've been drugged because it's like I don't know where I am, and I'm groggy and something weird is going on. And I tried to swallow and I thought I was going to die because the pain was so immense that I really thought I had cut my tongue open, bitten it off. I didn't know what had happened. I looked for blood. There was no blood. So I'm like, what's happened to me? And I walked into the bathroom and I tried to lift my tongue up to see, because it was all hurting, like where your palate below meets your tongue, where they connect. And it hurt so bad that every time I tried to swallow, I thought that I was going to die. And I was really in a lot of pain. And I finally got a cup of hot coffee down, and it kind of helped just a tiny bit. And thank God I had some painkillers with me. I have horrible migraines, so I get a few pain pills a month to take just in case of emergency. And thank God I had them with me, and I took one so I could at least kind of swallow without wanting to cry every time I swallowed. And you'd be surprised how many times you swallow a day. I had no idea till this happened to me. So I finally make it back home. I'm sitting in the kitchen with my roommate, and I can't talk either, by the way. I can barely talk because I can't move my tongue, because every time I move it, it hurt like heck. So I said to him, help me, I need help, man. I need to see what's going on. So he gets a big magnifying mirror, a flashlight, and I'm holding my tongue up, and we're doing this whole like dental operation in my mouth. And we're looking at it. Finally, I see it, and it looks like a taser. I swear to God, it looked like a taser. It was perfectly symmetrical. It was right across from each other, two holes burned into under my tongue. Really deep. I mean, like probably at least a quarter of an inch deep. And oh my God, no blood, no nothing like that. Just it looked like it had been burnt in. And just as I see it, this is the important part to this whole story, folks. Just as I see it, I hear a voice in my head say, "We told you not to talk."
wow.
And clear as day. I mean, I was like, okay, you know. And that was pretty much. I did do one more conference after that. It was a little more low key, and it was also a lot more targeted individuals, because no one believes them anyhow half the time. So I wasn't too worried about it, and I got away from the super soldiers and the secret space program and all the mind control. I got more into targeted people. It was still a very rough conference. I mean, there were a lot of really strange things happening, but it did go off. And I finally said, that's it. I'm not going to do this anymore. If I'm going to be tortured, I'm just not going to do it. And there was a
Fair
time.
enough.
Yeah, yeah. Antonia, there was a time when I was actually, after that event happened, I was looking for bombs under my car. I was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I was, locking 5 locks on my door. I got pretty paranoid for a while. And
Yeah.
then about 4 months, this is another incident that happened to me that I think is very profound. About 4 months into me being totally freaked out about everybody, hurting me, attacking me, making my life heck, who knows. I I finally thought, well, how are all these other whistleblower type guys, or guys that are in the conspiracy world, why are they all still alive? And why am I being tortured? What the heck's going on? So I called Jordan Maxwell. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's
No.
a very interesting guy. He was into the like conspiracy UFO stuff so many years ago. He wrote about it in Fate magazine. He was a very extraordinarily strong and powerful guy when it came to exposing the Pope and a lot of things going on in his life. Anyhow, I called him one day and I said, Jordan, And I go, "Why are you still alive?" And he goes, "I was wondering if you'd ever call me and ask me that." And I said, "Well, why? Why are you still alive? Why haven't they knocked you off yet? Because you do open your mouth a lot and you say a lot of things."
Sure.
And he said, "Yeah, yeah." So he said, "Well, I talk to God every day now." I go, "Oh, come on." I said, "There's no way." He goes, "Yeah, I talk to God every day and he protects me and we're all good now. I'm going to be okay." And I said, "Okay." I said, "How did you do it? How did you get God to talk to you every day?" And he goes, "Well, you go out in the woods and you scream for him to help you, as loud as you can, get down on your knees and you beg." And I said, "Okay." So I thought about it and I thought, well, if Jordan really did that, I don't think he'd lie to me about it, first of all. Second of all, if he really feels he's that protected, I really need that. And even if it's just false protection in my own little head that I'm concocting, I don't care. It'll make me feel better. So I
Sure.
did it for about 10 days. I'd run out into the woods behind my house and I'd get on my knees and scream to God to protect me. And it was, yeah, it was on the 10th day. I went back to my office and I'm sitting there and I again had that overwhelming sensation of peace and love come through my body. And I also felt um, a presence. And I can't explain that to people. It was just like so strange. And I was looking down when all this was happening. And I said in my head to God, I said, "If this is you telling me you're going to take care of me, I want you to know I will die for you."
Mm.
And I meant it because I was like, I'd been, I was done with the looking under my car for bombs. And I also can tell you about the people that were following me, and there was all kinds of strange stuff going on. I don't want to go into all of it, but trust
Mhm.
me, I had real reasons for fearing for my life at the time. So when I said, I will give my life for you, I will die for you, and I meant it. And I really meant it. Just like I had that love connection with the rabbit, same thing. And the second I did that, two angels appeared in front of me in my room. They were 30 feet tall. They were through the ceiling. The ceiling was gone. And they told me they'd take care of me. And here we are today. So that's pretty much what happened.
So tell us about, so you've done a lot of research into UFOs and what the government are releasing and information. So tell us all about that.
Well, now that's another whole life of mine. I got fascinated by ufology when I was about 12 or 13 years old. I used to run track. And what's strange, this is another strange thing about my life that people just laugh at, because my parents at 11 o'clock at night, my parents would let me walk up to the high school near my house in the dark, dead of night, alone, and go run the track and then come home, and they wouldn't even think about it. It's like, I don't know, they would never let my sisters do anything like that. I mean, it was just like, I look back on it now in my old age and I think, what the heck? And I even asked them at one point, "Why were you letting me run up at the track at midnight and stuff?" And they go like, "We never did that." And I'm like, "Okay, hold on, I know you did because I was there, I did it. But anyhow, so bottom line is, I'm about 13. I'm up at the high school track running at night. And I say, really, I just stopped running and I looked up and I said, "You've got to get me out of here. I want to go home." I started screaming for UFOs to come and take me away. And sure enough, one night I'm up there running and this big, giant, orange, glowing thing shows up, and I get a little hit from it, telepathic communication, that you are home for now and we'll take care of you later kind of information. It wasn't really in words, it was more like a feeling. It's
Mhm.
like, you're here for now and we'll take care of you. We'll get you out of here as soon as we can. And I was like, "Oh, cool. Okay." So that's what started it for me. At that point, I started reading every book I could get my hands on about ufology. And then I started I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but I started interviewing people about their UFO experiences. If anybody would talk to me about being psychic or, whatever, because I used to go to psychic fairs and conferences. They had little things like that back in those days that were, they weren't quite as big as they are now, but they were fun. And a lot of health conferences back then. And I would go to those, and inevitably you'd find the conspiracy people there and the, whatever. So I'd always talk to people like, have you ever seen a UFO? What happened? And so I've literally been interviewing people about their UFO experiences since I was about 16. And I've heard thousands, and I mean, probably 2,000 stories in my life, easy. And it's quite it's a phenomenal experience for anybody to have. But I think the sad part about all this, Antonia, is the fact that people who don't have the experience are they judge the people who say they do. And there's another whole thing about that, we could talk about if you want to, but it's really hard on the non-experiencers, I think, more so than the experiencers. And it's just interesting to see how people react that aren't experiencers. So
I think it's a lot for people to take, isn't it, when they have had no experience? And we're all, it's just cognitive dissonance, I think, largely because we have all these TV shows and movies, which are clearly there's all this interaction with normally nefarious ET races. And then it's just like, no, that's a load of rubbish. And then you've got the science who's also saying how many billions of planets there are. There are more galaxies and solar systems. There are grains of sand on all of the Earth. So the likelihood of there being life somewhere else is exceptionally high, and that they're still denying it and denying contact. We've got all the ancient alien stuff, and there's just so much information on it. But it's like, no, this doesn't happen. So I think that's a very difficult, it's the cognitive dissonance. It's just like there are two vibrations, yes and no, and suddenly they just cancel each other out. It's like a waveform. So I think that's what's happened to them. And so because they've just have been told it isn't true, then they're just anything that counters that, they just haven't got the space to be able to tune into and work on. I think that's what the problem is.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. And that's what I think is going to be fun about you and I are going to be up at a conference here in a week or so. And I'm sure this will probably air afterwards as we've discussed. But while we're at the conference, we're going to be around people that are from Venus, that have time traveled and been to Venus with Raymond there. So how did you get involved with that? I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to turn the tables on you here for a second. How did you get involved with Rob Potter and the Venus crowd?
I saw a video that he did on YouTube when he was talking to Faye. There was a whole fairy thing, and there was this guy that had been found some Fae, and he was commenting on that. Then I ended up interviewing him, and I've had some ET experiences myself. So, and I do healing, and I can do a lot of magical things with healing. And I've spent a long time awakening my system, and I have a lot of abilities and superpowers, which are pretty unusual. So yeah, and I've had lots of ET experiences and been rescued a few times when they've come to kill me. I've had at least 2 times they've tried. There's how many times they tried to kill me? 4 or so. I've had lots of encounters.
When you say they tried to kill you, who are they?
Beings have beamed in, and I've been rescued a number of times into my bedroom at various different locations, and actually it's been dodgy. And there've been fights, and Lord Ashtar's come to rescue me before. I did like a move from Storm from the X-Men before and knocked ETs over, and there were scratch marks and yelps and thuds and different things. So yeah, I've had a few experiences where they've come to either abduct me or take me out. And I do a lot of yeah. And I've had like various different things attack me, and I do a lot of work with the I work with the light. I work for God. God talks to me every day. I have a very direct communication with God because I'm working for God. And there's a lot of things against the dark side that I do, but I'm a divine travel agent. I used to be a slayer, and now I'm a divine travel agent. I build universes for them, and I portal them to different places because I realized that they were slaves. I was initially just, going on rampages, but then I just sort of sat with it. And I have this whole thing about how can everybody win? I'm very much about how can everybody win. So I started teleporting a lot billions of beings to different places to get them off planet so they can live out their life in peace and harmony, because they're starving and they are slaves and they're told to do X, Y, and
Right.
Z. Actually, it's not their free will. And if you kind of step back away from the victim mode, like they have attacked me, and then, you know, an eye for an eye what makes the whole world blind. So if you can actually step above that, and how is it that everybody can win, and how can you use a more loving stance on it, then I just realized, and send them to something akin to Disney World in the Bahamas, where they can just live out their lives in peace and harmony and abundance with everything that they possibly need. So I've built a lot of different places for them, which has sort of elevated me. And then I've got more abilities. I'm able to instantly dissolve traumas and diseases. So yeah, and I'm not from here.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the most fascinating thing you said in that whole uh, dissertation there was the fact that you talk to God every day. Do you know
Yes.
that every contactee I know that is, you know, been down the road and back and forth with the whole thing and fought it and then accepted it and then fought it again, or it's fighting their ETs or the other guys, or you know, whatever, every single one of them eventually finds their version of God and has an ongoing dialogue with that being, whether it, you know, and I consider it like a supreme ET, because you know, I mean, basically they're in a higher dimensional state than the lower dimensional ETs that you're battling there, and he's guiding you and helping you, or she, or it.
I get told to do things, and I'm just, yes, sir. That's my attitude towards it. And that, you know, the latest thing that I'm doing is I can delete traumas and diseases, and I've been able to do things like PTSD for 15 years, and I can do it pretty easily. And there's so many people who are struggling with PTSD. It's such a awful thing, especially for the veterans and the first responders. It's a,
Right.
you know, they're damaged. So God told me to go and do a study and work on first responders and veterans. And actually, I was going to do 100 initially, but now it's raised to 10,000. And I'm going to delete the PTSD
Wow.
in 10,000. I can do at least 1,000 people in one go, possibly 5. I can do big stuff. It actually it enhances it amplifies it working on more people, so that's no problem at all.
Hmm.
I'm going to write a big study, and then I'm going to write a book on it, and then I'm going to take it out and do as much sort of publications on it as possible, because there are ways to help, and I can just delete the emotional resonance of trauma. So when they think of the trauma again, it's just empty of emotion. So I can do that, and it's going to hopefully it's going to really help a lot of people and change the way that medicine works, because it is the way that I've
Do
got
you
is super efficient.
do you need to use a tool to do that, or is it all telepathic?
No, I've spent a lot of the last 20 years in a trance, awakening my gifts. I've got a lot of abilities, but I've literally been in a trance and absolutely exhausted and incapacitated for many, many years. I was bedridden. I was in a hermit stage, and awakening my superpowers. And now I've got a lot. I've got 15 levels that I teach of healing. But on my level 1, you can dissolve traumas. And I had that over 15 years ago. So, and I can instantly delete them. So people just think about the trauma. It's just like a gas that hangs around them. It's just empathy taken to the next stage. And I can just delete the
Exactly.
emotion. And I can do it instantly, and it's faultless. It works every single time. As people can connect to them, I can do it. It just works every single time. So, and I'm going to bring this work out, because then I just suddenly realized that the other ways of doing healing, like EMDR or talk therapy, they
Or
have a lot of
tapping,
limitations.
or yeah.
There's a lot of limitations to them. I mean, psychedelics seem to be, or plant medicine seem to be the best one at the moment, but it's still pretty
Mhm.
indirect. And you know, it can be dangerous. There are disadvantages to those sorts of things as well, and making sure the practitioner's in a safe environment, and you have to do it in the physical. I can pre-record a video, people can watch it, and they can get rid of their traumas from watching a pre-recorded video in their house, or I can work at
Cool.
mass. I need to be in stadiums and working on a lot of people simultaneously. And this is the future of, this is the 5D healing that I have. And I
Yes. Yeah.
huge duty and obligation to bring it to the world in a bigger way. So I'm looking for a lot of people to help me to bring it out to and to actually manage to recruit the 10,000 soldiers and first
Mhm.
responders with PTSD and bring it out into the world in a big way. So that's what I'm doing. That was my latest go do that from God.
Oh, wonderful. That is so fascinating. Have you thought about doing this for people who have trauma from being abducted? I mean, I'm sure you have. Have you thought about getting a group of those people together? Because I can get you all you want.
Oh, I have not. I will consider it. I'm just trying to figure out what the best way to write a. I will consider that because it's for this study, so I need to figure out if that's the right
Mhm.
way of doing it or not. But it might well be. But that could be
Well, it
a
might be a separate study. Who
might be a
knows?
separate study.
After you do the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for 10,000, and as soon as we get some, I'm doing the first group tomorrow, so that's
Oh,
quite exciting.
wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah, but I've been doing it for 15 years, as I say, and it works. So it's just bringing this out into the world. And the best way to do that is to write a study and to just really, and have the testimonials and have the paperwork and have, all of that sort of stuff and bring it into the world in a big way. So that's my go do that.
Well,
That was my
you've
big
got to
multitasking.
because yeah, the problem with our group, I work for a top psychologist, and the problem to do anything like that, if you're a healer type person, none of them take you seriously unless you do a study. You have to. There's no way you're going to get away with not doing it at this point.
That's the thing.
So,
And if I have interviews from 10,000 people who have got diagnosed PTSD and they fill in the paperwork and it's the government, we're going the PTSD checklist, which is a government thing. That's a US
oh
military.
wow.
So I make them, that's their checklist. So I make them fill that in before and after and see where we are. And then we have a video interview on it. And then we just collate it all and then put all the little videos out and try to make that go viral and get some support and all of that sort of stuff. And then, getting lots of people a lot of people are being very helpful with this because I'm not charging for it, and it's going to potentially change everything, the face of medicine, and help a lot of people in a big way and bring us into the next stage. So a lot of people are being very generous with their time to help out and bring this through.
Wonderful. I'm so happy for you. This is just amazing, and happy for everybody on the planet because I've got a story around this for you. This ties
Can
right into what you're talking about. When I was about 33 years old, I woke up one day and I had been praying. Well, there had been a couple other things that had happened, but about 2 weeks before this incident, I begged my ETs to take the chip out of my head. I begged them. I begged them for like a month and a half. Finally, about 10 days before this incident, I woke up and there was such a pain in the back of my neck, right where that little dent is, where your skull connects to your spine. It hurt so bad and it felt kind of wet. And I thought, oh my God, it's bleeding. What's going on? And it wasn't bleeding. I had my roommate again look at it, and it was just like it looked like a healed over scar, and it was bright red. It hurt for 2 days. I mean, hurt really bad. And I felt kind of strange from it. And I knew that they had taken this chip out of my neck. Okay. It was gone. So 10 days later, I'm laying in bed. I wake up and I can't feel my body at all. And this is the best part of the whole thing. There wasn't one thought going through my head. It was dead silence.
I
There
had that.
was, yeah, nothing. I mean, just completely nothing.
Yeah, I
And
had
I
that.
never had that. Yeah, I never had it in my life ever, ever, ever. I thought I'd had a stroke. Because you remember the lady Bolton? I can't remember her first name. Bolton's her last name. She was on a TED Talk talking about her stroke. She's a brain scientist, and then she has a stroke, and
Okay.
she's thinking about her whole brain while she's having the stroke. Anyhow, long story short, it was very similar to a right hemisphere stroke. So I thought, oh my God, well, my first thought was, I'm dead. Good. I get to leave here now. Okay, great. Because there's no thoughts, can't feel my body. Everything's good. I'm going home. Right. But no, then I realized about 30 seconds later, oh my God, I'm still alive. If I've had a stroke and I can't move, I'm in trouble. I'm in big trouble. So I said, okay, lift your right arm. So I did. I lifted my right arm. I'm like, oh my God, lift your left arm, lift my left arm. Okay. Okay, I haven't had a stroke. I'm wiggling my toes. Okay, I haven't had a stroke. What is wrong with my brain? I can't, there's no thoughts going through. There's nothing. It isn't spontaneously just creating thoughts all the time, which usually when I'm awake, that's what was going on. It was a constant barrage of static insanity going on in my brain. and there's nothing there. And guess what? The ETs talk to me again. They say, "We gave you a gift. We healed you from all of your past stuff. You don't have to ever think about it again or carry it with you on a daily basis all the time. And you are being given a gift. You can just think about what you want to think about when you want to. If not, shut it all down and go to that peaceful spot of nothingness, and you're fine."
I have that.
Isn't
Yeah.
it amazing?
I had that years ago, but mine was a bit I suppose it's always a bit violent and aggressive. When my internal monologue shut down one day, that's probably 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer actually, maybe 18 years ago. My internal monologue shut down, and it was really strange because I one day I used to have all this chatter like I was in Grand Central Station, and then it was completely
Exactly.
silent. But it was really strange for me, and I didn't think I was having a stroke. But every time I tried to read anything, and I was trying to say the words inside my head, I had like a shooting pain from the base of my spine into my yes,
Oh,
so the
that's
base until
interesting.
the base of my head. Yeah, it was very painful. And then so if I wanted to do anything, I had to say things out loud. So I wanted to cross the road, and I was like, look left, look right, crossing the road. And I was that was really strange for a while. And so I had to mutter. So I had to wear headphones if I left the house and just start pretending that I was on calls to people because I had zero internal monologue at all. And then that was very
Wow.
strange. I thought I was going crazy. And then I was like, does it really work? So then I decided to dose up on coffee, and I had like 10 espressos. Because when you have a lot of coffee, your brain goes. So I so I was
Exactly.
like, screw it, let's see what happens. So I took a lot of espressos, and I just sat it was in a hotel reception, and I just meditated, and I was like, right, okay, so coffee's not even doing it. I'm just living in walking meditation. And that was a long time ago, and I've not had it back since. So yeah, and then I can just hear the voice of my thoughts and the voice of God very clearly.
Exactly. I mean, oh, thank God I met another soul sister here. Thank God. And I actually got over it really quick. Like in 2 or 3 days, I was fine with it, and I've
Oh,
been
look,
fine with it
that was
ever
2
since.
months.
I was
Maybe
like,
I was
"Thank you."
experiment. How long ago did it happen to you?
I was about 33 years ago.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. It's very
Yeah, yeah.
unusual.
So yeah, I've been living with it for a long time, and I really enjoy it, and I'm thankful every day that I was given that gift, because
Yeah.
people have no idea. They just don't understand that they're being bombarded on a frequency chatter, internal monologue thing going on 24/7 all the time.
Well, I actually I demonstrate this a lot because I have an energy where I can put a force field in between them and their thoughts, and then their brains go completely silent instantaneously. That's one of my skills. Yeah, that's fun.
Well, that's really cool. I never met anybody that can make it happen. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, I
You
do that
know, I
to demonstrate that it's external to them. I do it quite a lot. Yeah, yeah. I might do
That's
it.
very cool. Now, what could it do for me? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm going to go to your presentation
Yeah,
next week.
yeah,
And
yeah.
do you do that in your presentation? Do you talk about
I
how to
haven't
do
decided
this?
what I'm gonna do, but I think I might. Or maybe come yeah, I can do it. I can do or come to the class that I'm teaching as well. You're very welcome to that. Yeah, fun.
I'd love
Let's
to.
do
What
it.
I'd love to see now, the people that are listening to this are going, "Okay, these two women, I don't know, right?" But I want to see if it cancels it out for me or changes it in any way.
I
What
can
you
do it right
do?
now. Would you like me to do it right now? I can do it right now.
Sure. Let's try it. Let's see what
Okay,
happens.
just for everyone okay, so anyone who's at home, just follow along the steps. I'm gonna give you a second to just sort of see how chatty your brain is, and then I'm gonna put a force field in between you and your thoughts. Or I think that they're an attack and feeding on this loose system, but I will just
I
block you
agree.
going on externally to you, really. So it's just you in your head, and it will stay up for a number of hours, and it'll be nice and peaceful. But you can come back and watch it again if you would like to get the benefits again. All right, so just everybody close your eyes. Anyone watching at home, you, Lorian, and I will put a full stop between you and your thoughts. Okay, that's up. So anyone who's at home, just notice for a few moments how that feels, if it feels any different. Yeah. Did it make any difference to you, Lorian?
Um, I don't think so, but I will tell you this. I ended up going out of my body altogether, and I was talking to your buddies up there that are your other guys. They're not. I don't know what they are. They're not ETs really. They're kind of like Supermasters or Saint Germain type of people. Are you connected with any of those guys?
I think there's a conversation to have off camera.
Okay, because something just happened that was really odd. But my head is very clear. It's very clear. It's better than it's been in a while. So yeah, I think it did make a little bit of a difference. It took me right in. So that was pretty cool. Very nice.
Yeah,
I
it's
hope
really.
everybody else had as much fun as I did.
Yeah, it does. It works, and then it stays up for a number of hours, and then people can really see that they're not their thoughts, which I think is a very important thing.
Exactly. That was the one thing I learned right away within 2 days of this happening to me. I went, wow, all these years, those thoughts may have been from other entities and other dimensions. They may have been from a military program that's going on. They may be from all kinds of stuff that I have no control over. They could even be radio frequencies talking about, church on Sunday. Who knows where they're coming from, but they aren't always just me. Okay. That's for sure. It's pretty amazing when you finally realize that, you know.
Wonderful. I think we need to bring our chat to a close. We're running out of time just to touch.
Oh my God, it is almost been an
Nearly
hour.
an
This has
hour.
been fascinating.
So
Fascinating.
tell me about what you've got coming up. There's something in October?
Yes, we've got UFO MiniCon coming up in Northern California. It will be in Petaluma, California, where I live. And if you're in the California area, even Nevada, Oregon, I have people coming from all over the Western states for it. Now, it's a very small conference. There's only 65 seats. I don't usually do something this small, but we're building on UFO Con. In 2025, we're going to be in a convention center. So this year, we're just kind of doing a small little mini conference. And one of the people that's going to be there is a very famous ufology guy here in America. His name is David Adair. And it might be one of his last events ever. And so it's kind of going to be a whole weekend about David and the other people I've got speaking. And it's going to be a wonderful small event. It's not very pricey, even. It's just enough, we're covering expenses for the speakers. That's all we're doing. And it's just for you guys to have a good time. So when the site launches on July 14th, you can go after that and purchase a ticket and come on down and see us there. We'd really love to meet you.
Amazing. Okay. Have you got a book upcoming? Tell me about that.
Yeah, my book is called Being Lorian, and then it's just about all my life and all the different pieces of my life and the stories that have been, expanded upon. I'm also writing a new book about my super soldier mind control and targeted individual conferences. Just those 3 conferences alone are a whole book.
Wow.
It
Okay.
was wild. So there you go.
I think we'll have to get you back on another time, and you can tell us all about what the disclosure is from the government side and all of that sort of
I'm
stuff. I
going to
think
be talking about that. We're at the conference we're going to be at together.
Ooh, that sounds interesting as
Yes.
well. But
Yes.
we'll get you back on for all of that. So have you got any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with my lovely audience?
I just want everybody to know that everyone is capable of having superpowers, right?
I teach
And
them.
we're all capable of empowerment, like divine empowerment, like Antonia says, and that God is right there with you at every step. Every step, you just got to listen and talk to him. That's it.
Beautiful. And if people want to find you, they can just go to laurianfenton.com for all the information. Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful.
great. Love to
Perfect.
have you guys listen to my podcast. It's lots of
Yes,
fun.
Tell us about your podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
The Fenton Perspective. It's been on revolution.radio for about 13 years now. And every week I have somebody extraordinary that is so different from the last week. But they're all into something extraordinary. So that's what it's all about.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Lorian, for joining. And thank you, everybody at home, for watching. Bye-bye.